Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, and this is One Child Abuse Survivor 2, another 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room is open if anybody's awake and wants to sit in there. And I want to continue talking about trauma and the effects of trauma and how we can help ourselves feel better. It's from an article from SAMHSA, the National Mental Health Information Center. That's where I found it, and it's called Dealing with the Effects of Trauma, a Self-Help Guide. And we've been going through that pretty much in the mornings for a few days, and it's really worth looking at. If you can find this article at http://mentalhealth.samhsa.gov. It's a SAMHSA's National Mental Health Information Center. It's a great article. And I just find that there's some helpful and very important information on it. You know, I've looked around at quite a lot of material and stuff and whatnot, whatever I can get my hands on, really, as far as online stuff goes, regarding trauma and the effects of child abuse and the whole issues surrounding survivors of child abuse, right? And looking into trauma, just anyone can experience trauma. Life is traumatic, and it can be. And I can't imagine anyone actually getting through their whole entire lifetimes without some trauma. So it's very important that people know that there's things we can do to get help and to help ourselves, so that we don't allow these things to, to direct our lives and make it so that we can't have a good life and that we can't function and that, so that's why I like to look at this stuff, because it does give me ideas on how to cope, and then how to deal with certain things when it comes along. I have some ideas to go by, right? So that's why I want to continue looking at this article. So, yeah, we have about 28 minutes left. I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I don't hold any professional certificates in those areas. I'm really just a private citizen who pays to do my blog talk shows, because I think the issues surrounding child abuse really need to be talked about, and for adult survivors as well. Silence is a real big problem, I think. Abusers would love to keep all their victims silent, because then, of course, they get to go free. And, survivors of child abuse and whatnot, they're often silent for many reasons. They're out of fear. If the abuser is still living and they fear for their life or the consequences of coming forward and speaking out. The whole issue surrounding the fact that many people never validate or even believe a survivor's story. Even though we know it happened. So, that's the whole issue. Silence is a real problem, and that's why I wanted to be one more voice out there to say, look, we need to start talking about this stuff. It needs to be front and center, mainstream. As far as the media goes, you never hear anything about child abuse except for what the actual articles regarding children that have been killed or murdered or in the hospital due to abuse, right? So, this is the whole issue. We need to start talking about how we're going to address this and what society's going to do and how people can prevent this stuff. And it should be on the very front page of every newspaper in North America, as far as I'm concerned, and around the world, because children are dying, and many, many children ended up in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries. And then there's so many more that never will be detected because it's very hidden away, and we know this is happening. So that's why I want to do these shows, just to be one more voice to talk about child abuse and how we're going to prevent it and stop it and get some information out to people. So you have to listen at your own discretion. The topics of abuse are very sensitive, and if you're just starting your healing journey, it could trigger you, and so you need to know and be very aware of what you're listening to and whether or not you're going to be comfortable with it. That's why I always give the topic and give the website that I'm actually reading the information from, so that people will know what I'm actually going to be talking about. And then if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to my shows. I say this on every show because I myself and a whole lot of other advocates out here are fighting to save your life. You want to be very careful what you do online as a young person, and there are, any given time, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of child online sexual predators and pedophiles online trying to get a hold of children, posing as young children, posing as teenagers, posing as young people, right? Trying to get you to give them your information so they can find you and then ultimately sexually assault you or whatever they're going to do. So keep yourself very, very safe. Check out the FBI's website regarding internet safety. I love that website. I think that website's awesome, and I think what they're doing is really awesome, trying to bust these child sexual predators out here, and pedophiles, and people who are dealing with pornography, child pornography. Make sure you get the facts to know how to keep yourself safe. I'll just keep saying that on every show because it is so important with the, how many, with the amount of internet usage that people are using every day, and especially young people. You have to be very careful about who you talk to online, and never ever give out any personal information. Never your real name, never your address, never your telephone number. You never tell anyone what school you go to, what your teacher's name is. So just, I have no idea where these Blog Talk players are, and kids could be listening to this stuff. So it's very important that you know that you need permission to listen to my show, and that you should have someone listen with, an adult who has the ability to sort of help you make the decision whether or not you should be listening to my shows, because they are ultimately to stop child abuse and about child abuse. But the whole issue is there's a lot of adult material on these shows, and I don't know how young the listeners are. So we'll get started here with this article, and we left off yesterday at things you can do every day to help yourself feel better from this article from SAMHSA, dealing with the effects of trauma, a self-help guide. And there's lots of good coping lists out there. I've sort of noticed when I look around. There's many coping lists out there. Michael C. Irving's website, irvingstudios.com, has a great set of adult survivor coping lists and whatnot, and I've gone over them a couple times on my shows, and you can just find it by typing www.irvingstudios.com, or you can just type in Child Abuse Survivor Monument, and it will bring up his stuff. And the Child Abuse Survivor Monument is an awesome website. It's an awesome monument in Toronto, Ontario. Michael C. Irving is a psychotherapist. He's also a sculptor, and he's also a survivor of child abuse. So he knows all about it, and he wants to help people to learn how to cope and how to feel better and how to make their way through this journey, to having more good days than bad days, and finally, work toward their healing. So it's a great website, and I just hope everybody will check it out. I've got some awesome friends and advocates sitting in the chat room. Hello, everybody, and I just hope you're all well. And so, we'll just, there's lots of coping lists, and just to know that they're out there, they're just giving suggestions, right? This one from SAMHSA, things you can do every day to help yourself feel better. As we go through these lists, it's a huge list. This is just ideas for people, just in case you're just feeling like, wow, I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to, I don't know how I'm going to cope, what I'm going to find that's going to make me feel better. We really have to have lists of things that we can use when we're actually feeling like overwhelmed, or, just that we can't cope with certain things, that we're going to, possibly like self-injure or hurt ourselves, or just, doing too many things that are just bad for us. We can have these lists that help us to keep our mind, first of all, busy and occupied, so that we can kind of allow ourselves to move through the whole thing safely, right? And just to make ourselves feel better. It's no fun to be feeling all down and depressed all the time, right? And it's so important to get, I don't have any personalized coping lists, and that, I kind of know what I like to do and what makes me feel good. But you can, they said there's no sound in the chat room. You can find things that work for you, because everybody's different. So these lists here, this is all just ideas, right? So it says here, there are many things that happen every day that can cause you to feel ill, uncomfortable, upset, anxious, or irritated. You will want to do things to help yourself feel better as quickly as possible, without doing anything that has negative consequences. For example, drinking, committing crimes, hurting yourself, risking your life, or eating lots of junk food, right? So there's things that we can do. So we can read through the list here. It says, check off the ideas that appeal to you and give each of them a try. Excuse me. When you need to help hear yourself feel better, it says, make a list of the ones you would find to be most useful, along with those you have successfully used in the past, and hang the list in a prominent place, like on the refrigerator door, as a reminder at times when you need to comfort yourself. Use these techniques when you are having a hard time, or as a special treat for yourself. And it says something fun or creative, something you really enjoy, like crafts, needlework, painting, drawing, woodworking, making a sculpture, reading fiction, comics, mystery novels, or inspirational writings, doing crosswords or jigsaw puzzles, playing a game, taking some photographs, going fishing, going to a movie or other community event, gardening. He's just throwing out these people are just throwing out some ideas, right? Get some exercise. Exercise is a great way to help yourself feel better while improving your overall stamina and health. The right exercise can't even be fun. And I know myself, like, I do not like to exercise. I mean, I'd rather go, play some basketball or some tennis and run around like that. But just to be in a room with four walls, sitting there, looking at the wall, riding a bike, I'm just not into that. But because Canada's winters are pretty harsh and severe and long, there's not a whole lot of time we can get outside to enjoy the outdoor weather. So, I got to find some way that I can get some exercise, and that's one thing that I do not like to do. So, and I know I always feel better when I'm healthier, when I'm exercising and taking care of myself. So if you let yourself kind of physically go because of the stress in your life, which quite often happens, it's unfortunate, but I've seen I myself have done it. So it's really important to take care of ourselves physically as well as emotionally, right? Because if your body feels terrible, well, then it's hard to feel good about anything. If you just feel like really sick all the time, or you're just not feeling well, it is hard to cope. It's hard to cope with anything when you're feeling like that, right? So we do need to kind of help ourselves out, right? And I know I need to really get serious about that stuff myself. Write something. It says, writing can help you feel better. You can keep lists, record dreams, respond to questions, explore your feelings. All ways are correct. Don't worry about how well you write. It's not important. It's only for you. And writing about the trauma or traumatic events also helps a lot. It allows you to safely process the emotions you are experiencing. And it tells your mind that you are taking care of the situation and helps to relieve the difficult symptoms you may be experiencing. Keep your writings in a safe place where others cannot read them. That's if you want to keep it private to yourself, Share them only with people you feel comfortable with. And you may even want to write a letter to the person or people that have treated you badly, telling them how it affected you, and not send the letter. I've seen that on a few other websites as well. And they were saying you don't even have to send the letter. You can either tear it up, just in case you don't want it to fall into the wrong hands at some point, or you can keep it for a later date, pull it out and read it again, and see if you want to give it to that person at that time, or if those people are not available. Let's say those people have passed on. Your abusers or abuser has passed on already. That's in my case. My mom's passed away 15 years ago, so there's no way to ever reconcile with her when the last time I saw her, that was the last time we had any opportunity for that, and she was almost in a coma, so that just didn't happen. But the thing is I could still write a letter to her and tell her how she made me feel and what she did to me, and because she'll never see it, but at least I can get my say out. I can say what I need to say. And so even if the person is gone and no longer on this earth, we can still do these things to try to give ourselves a path for this, the way that we're feeling, and to allow it to come out, and to be directed at the person that deserved it, and not someone else in our lives or whatever, the person that should have heard this stuff, even if they're not alive, or they're not accessible and you just can't find them, or whatever. So it's a good idea, I think it's a good idea, and you don't ever have to give it to them if you have something that all survivors have to deal with, and I think that all survivors, eventually face this whole issue of, do I confront the abuser? Do I not confront the abuser? And it's something I think you have to know. You just have to work that out yourself, especially if you're working with a therapist or a counselor, to be comfortable with the whole thing, right? It's very important that we really take control of our healing journey, right, in every aspect. And we got to know what's comfortable for us and what's not. And so, my dad is still living, and when I wrote my story, A Life of Death, The Redemption, I thought about it. I thought, well, should I, it was for a minute, a split second. I thought, do I wait till he's passed away, he's 87 years old, or do I write it and put it out there now? And I thought, well, the whole issue is that it's truth, so for me to wait until he passes away would just be saying, well, I had to wait till he passed away because I didn't want him to find out. But I thought about it, I thought, I don't care if he finds out, because, he did what he did. My family, my parents did what they did, and so I didn't care. I don't care who it hurts in the family that I've written that story. It's truth. So truth is truth, regardless of the situation, right? So my dad's still living, and it is just. I thought, well, if I lose him, it doesn't really matter, because our whole family was very dysfunctional. So if he decides to never talk to me again or whatever, then that's the way it goes, right? Because I have every right to speak the truth, and we all survivors really should be able to do that, and it's unfortunate that many can't. and many families will not support survivors, right? So that's why it's good, if you can write a letter to the people that have abused you or hurt you in some way, and you can write how you feel and what they did, and what they made you go through. At least you can get it out on paper where you can look at it instead of keeping it all bottled up inside, right? That's why I started writing my blog, and it was very important for me to do that, to get the information out, and it did feel really good when I was done with my blog, and I never expected about the blog to be published, but it was public, and it was showing. I was actually, directing people to my blog, but the thing is I never expected it to be published, and so now that it's published book, it really is a good feeling, and I hope that it does help some people see and survivors see that we can do this, and we have to keep moving forward, and at our own pace on our healing journey, right? And do what's necessary so that we can have a good life and not be stuck in this continual life of, trying to live the same way that we've been living our whole lives, which is by being abused, and then to continue it on in our adult lives by really not processing the information and not getting any help. All we're doing is just continuing that abuse cycle through our whole lives. And I thought, man, I do not want to live the rest of my life like this. I'm going to have to take control there. And I'm going to have to do some work on myself if I want to get some help. So I realized I was the only one that could do it. So that's the whole issue, as long as we get some help, and reach out. So, excuse me. And, I have a friend in the chat room. Well, she's really my... this is Be Safe First. It says, I know that one about writing and been there, still being careful to not hurt them. Yeah, well, that's the whole issue, and it's something that, people have to be very cautious what they do. If they're going to write, they have to realize the consequences if somebody does get a hold of the material, or the fact that if you do write it and present it to the abuser, there will be consequences if they're still living. There's always consequences to everything we do. If there's an action, there's a reaction, right? So we have to kind of be prepared for that kind of stuff, and I wouldn't suggest doing it without the help of someone who can be there for you, so that you can, have some support if you're going to do something like that. I think it's very important, whether it's a counselor, therapist, or just a really good friend. Oh, right on. Well, that's John Harrison, he's in the chat room, and that's who said that he knows all about the waiting and been there, still been careful to not hurt them. It's just absolutely so important that survivors know, that there are ways that we can help ourselves, and that we have to be careful, and we have to be in charge of our healing. Many people might have all kinds of great ideas on what's going to work and what's going to be helpful, and you should do this and you need to do that, trying to direct our lives. And really, as far as the healing process goes, we need to be very sure, what's going to work for us, right? So in other words, you got to do some soul searching. You got to sit down and you got to think about what's going to make you comfortable. You know what I mean? Is it going to be group support? Is it going to be one-on-one peer support? Like an online group support thing. That's what I like, because I really like the fact that you could be anonymous if you wanted to be, and also safety in numbers, and also that I don't have to go anywhere to do this, right? Because I'm very busy and I can get some help online. So I really like that. But just as long as we do reach out and get some help, that's the whole issue, right? So use your spiritual resources. Spiritual resources and making use of these resources varies from person to person. And for some people it means praying, going to church, or reaching out to a member of the clergy. For others it's meditating or reading affirmations and other kinds of inspirational materials. It may include rituals and ceremonies, whatever feels right to you. And spiritual work does not necessarily occur within the bounds of an organized religion. Remember, you can be spiritual without being religious. So, I know myself, I'm a very spiritual person, and so I believe all of us are well, of course we're all different, and all of us have the idea within ourselves of what's going to bring us peace, and what brings us comfort, and what's comforting to me may not be comforting to somebody else, and so that's the whole issue. It's whatever brings you peace into your heart and comfort, and makes you feel like, hey, tomorrow's another day. It brings that hope around, that feeling of, doesn't have to always be like this. It can change, and it can change for the better. It's whatever makes you feel that way, so that the next, you can get up the next day and the next day knowing that, there's going to be bad days in between, but eventually you'll get to be, hopefully at the place in your life where you can have more good days than bad days as a survivor of child abuse, right? Now that's the whole issue. And for some people it's just not as easy as others, and some people, because of what they've been through, it's just so difficult. And I know this. I know many survivors, and I know myself, even what I went through until the age of 41, which most people that I would tell, they'd be like, well, it shouldn't affect you that much. You should be able to get over it, move on with your life, and why are you even feeling this way? And in the meantime, they had no idea about this screaming, raging child that was living inside of me, my little self, right, who was so angry and so hurt, what do you do with that? You know what I mean? She was there. And, so people don't quite often understand how we're feeling or what we're going through. And so, and other survivors, everyone's different and on a different journey, right? So but we can do this together. And that's why I say, I like to be a bit of support for people and say we can do it, because I believe that. I truly do. And sometimes, some of us might need more help than others, and that's a fact. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The sad part is watching people like myself sit around for 41 years without reaching out and just keeping it all bottled up. Now that's the sad thing. If you're reaching out and getting help, you're doing the right thing. Whether it's a counselor or therapist, or whether it's just a group support or a good friend, just as long as you're reaching out, you're doing the right thing, I think, because it's the people that suffer along in silence and never ever get any help that just eventually just are destroyed by the whole thing, and that's the whole issue. I watched my brothers do that. Two of my brothers, one died from suicide, and the other one died from a drug overdose, which was basically suicide. I mean, he knew eventually the drugs would kill him, so it's just another way to go. So that's the whole issue. They didn't really try to get any help, and they didn't, they had the opportunity many times, but for some reason there was just something inside of them that would not allow themselves to want to heal and want to have a good life. They just couldn't get it. They couldn't grasp it, and they just, they're gone. They never have the opportunity again. And so that's what makes me extremely interested in getting information out to people as soon as we can and as quickly as I can, because I just want to be one more voice out there, because the issues surrounding this whole mess of adult survivor issues and trauma and child abuse and whatnot, there's so many of us out here, and most people will not even acknowledge it, and will not, the society and the public doesn't want to acknowledge it, because that means they have to deal with it. And a lot of survivors don't want to acknowledge it because it's so painful, and they're not ready to move forward on their journey. And then, quite often they do just continue to live these horrible lives as adult survivors of child abuse, right? Allowing themselves to be abused again, or getting involved in substance abuse, abusing their own children, right? I mean, it doesn't always happen, but it could, and it can, and sometimes does. It's horrible what this whole child abuse issue does to people, you know what I mean? And that's why we really have to change this thing, you know what I mean? So if you're a survivor out there, you have to find out what's going to work for you so that you can feel better and make it, and don't allow this whole thing to destroy you, right? So I like that idea about the spiritual resources. You don't have to be, you can be spiritual without being religious. It's whatever brings you peace, whatever makes you feel good. It says do something routine. When you don't feel well, it helps to do something normal, the kind of thing you do every day or often, and things that are a part of your routine, like taking a shower, washing your hair, making yourself a sandwich, calling a friend or family member, making your bed, walking the dog, or getting gas in the car. And I know that's very important to have that routine, especially after a huge traumatic event, because your whole world gets completely turned around. And I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life, and I know that after the trauma would happen, the traumatic event, whatever it was, I would really feel like I just needed to do something normal. You know what I mean? And something normal would just be like, sitting down in a chair and having a bag of chips and watching a TV program. I'd just be like, I have to get myself back in focus, because my mind would be just flipped right out from whatever I had just experienced. So, and I know, trauma affects a lot of people, right? If death in the family, illnesses, sickness, abuse, it's pretty major, and especially for young people, and it's hard if no one is there to support them. They have to try to figure this stuff out themselves, you know what I mean? So after, especially for survivors of child abuse, after a night of hell or a day of hell in the home, you got to try to go and make some sense of that and try to get your reality back, because the real reality is what just happened to you. But then you got to go and exist with all these other people and learn how to cope so that you can continue to go to school or do whatever it is that you're doing. And so it's extremely hard on people. It makes your mind do like a flip, and I used to have to bring myself right into reality by just thinking of normal things and try to be like, okay, I got to get my mind to be focusing on normal things. And it was it was a lot of work. But by just doing routine things, we can do that for ourselves, especially if we're triggered and something triggers us. We can just get our coping lists, right? And we can sit down with our coping list and say, okay, I need to just do some normal things. So what's on my list for a routine list? Like take a walk, make myself some lunch, call a friend, walk the dog, right? Just normal things. Mow the lawn. Get back to something that that gets your mind off and away from either the trigger or from the trauma that just happened. That's always you. And I mean, we have to experience these things. But I think what they're talking about here and what I've always been reading about is for us as survivors, if we're feeling overwhelmed, this is lists of things that we can do that can help us, right? If we're feeling overwhelmed and we just need something else to focus on, and so that we can calm down or breathe and relax, right? Just gives us some ideas, right? Wear something that makes you feel good. Everybody has certain clothes or jewelry that they enjoy wearing. And these are the things to wear when you need to comfort yourself, like comfort food or something, like comfort clothing, I guess. I don't have comfort clothes, although I have to say I do live in black cords and T-shirts. But the thing is I don't care about clothing, but my big problem is comfort food, because I tend to like to snack, and so if I'm feeling stressed out, or besides the cigarettes, which I'm quitting here pretty quick, but food is a real problem for me, because I have to be careful, right? Because if I'm feeling upset or a little bit overtired that day, I tend to want to use food as my comfort thing, and so and for many health reasons and everything else, a person just doesn't need to be allowing themselves to overindulge in that kind of stuff. There's other things that would have to make us feel better, right? Like putting on some nice clothes or just whatever makes us comfortable. You know what I mean? So get some little things done. It always helps you feel better if you accomplish something, even if it is a very small thing. Think of some easy things to do that don't take much time, and then do them. Here are some ideas. Clean out a drawer, put 5 pictures in a photo album, dust a bookcase, read a page in a favorite book, do a load of laundry, cook yourself something healthy, send someone a card. So those are some good ideas, and I think that's a great idea. Just read one page in your favorite book. It just allows your mind to relax, and it takes you to a place where you find, sort of comfortable, right? And a lot of times I'll do that. I'll stop for a minute if I'm just overwhelmed and overtired and whatnot, and I'll put on a CD or something, or a DVD, some sort of a movie or something. And even if I don't watch the whole thing, it does take my mind away from what the issue is for a bit, so I can just relax and calm down. And I think that's not a bad idea. Just learn something new. Think about a topic that you are interested in but have never explored. Find some information on it in the library. Check it out on the internet. Go to class. Look at something in a new way. Read a favorite saying, poem, or piece of scripture, and see if you can find new meaning in it. See, I think that's a great idea. Learn something new. That's what I'm always trying to do. Just to keep going and keep moving forward, right? Just to keep learning all the time. We have about a minute left, and I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. Please check out our website at www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com and get the information regarding signs and symptoms and how to report child abuse. We need to learn all those signs and symptoms of all the different kinds of child abuse so we can help stop child abuse. We really need to do that. If you haven't done that, there's a free PDF download on the website or from lulu.com, Sharon Potter Books, and it's a free PDF download called The Child Abuse Handbook, compiled by Donna Shear and Sandra Potter. And it's great information, full of all the different signs and symptoms, so that people will know and look out for the kids in their life, to make sure that they're not being abused. Very important. And then you want to report it and know how to report it properly. And, this is the whole issue. You want to report it properly so that the case does not get thrown out of court, you just want to get the information. You never know when a child's going to come to you and say, and disclose that they're being abused, or that you would run into a child who is being abused, right? What would you do? How would you handle it? It's so important to get that information. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. And I love you guys so much, and hope you have a great evening, and take care of yourselves. Be seeing you around again, and I'll be back on again tomorrow morning and tonight on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio as well with Donna Shear around 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and a good night, and we'll be talking to you real soon. Talk to you later.